Hey guys, how you doing? And welcome back to another video. So today I want to speak about living the life that is pleasing to God. And so now where does this come from? In St. Paul's letter to the Thessalonians, which we read in the second reading of today's gospel, St. Paul says, "Finally, brothers, we urge you and appeal to you in the Lord Jesus to make more and more progress in the kind of life that you are meant to live, the life that God wants as you learnt from us, and as you are already living it. You have not forgotten the instructions we gave you on the authority of the Lord." And so St. Paul here is talking about living that life pleasing to God, walking in that path, that God has given us, walking in that life that we are meant to live, as it says in the reading. But I also want to speak about returning to that life we are supposed to live. And what I mean by that is this. So some of us may have had this powerful encounter with God some point in our lives in a particular place, wherever it may be. And once we've had this encounter, we have personally said to the Lord, "My Jesus, I am going to live that life for you. I'm going to live a life according to your will, live a life that's pleasing to you." And then once we've made that promise, once we've made that statement to God, we then go back to our day to day lives, whether it is work, or university, school, or wherever that may be. And once we've gone back, we start to slowly lose that zeal that we had in the first place because of the influences around us, because of the ideas around us, because of the thought processes of people around us. It starts to influence our thoughts, our mind, and it starts to impact our spirituality. And then slowly, we start to lose that love that we had for God at first. We start to lose that zeal, that spirit for the Lord. And then we become a completely different person to the person we were when we had that encounter with God. And so now at this point, it is now about trying to get back to that life, go get back to that zeal that we originally had with God. And so to do this, it's a process. It's a process to returning back to that original zeal that we had for God. And so the first step, which I want to talk about, is returning to where it all started. So this basically means that you have to go back to that place where you had that original encounter with God. And this place in particular will be a special place to you because it is a place where Christ firstly revealed himself to you and showed to you what living a life with him is like. And he has shown to you in this particular place that he has shown to you that his love cannot be compared to anything of this world. And living a life that's pleasing to him is what gives you the most joy. And so this place ultimately becomes that place where you will always remember God in a special way. And so this place becomes a place of nourishment for you whenever you return to it. And so it's like when we are hungry, right? When we are hungry for food, we go back, we go and find food, and we eat the food and nourish ourselves again. And that's the same with our spirituality. When we go through a period of dryness in spirituality, we have to go back to where we had that original nourishment, and then we nourish ourselves once again. And so this is a very helpful step to returning to that life that God wants you to live. And so, for those of you who perhaps haven't quite had that powerful encounter with God yet, then I guess for you, your prayer at this moment, is to ask God to give you that encounter. And the Lord will give you that encounter when you ask Him. He may take you to a particular place for Him to have that encounter with you, or He may, give you that encounter in a particular way for you. And so it's about waiting for God to give you that encounter. But if you already had that encounter, it's about going back to where God revealed Himself to you in the first place. So the second step is this. So once you have gone back to your to that place of encounter, you then go back to your life and first of all acknowledge that without God you are weak. So in our lives, a lot of us, we fall in our lives. But it is when we fall, it is when we have these setbacks in our life, we then come to realize that, hold on, without God, I am weak. And I cannot continue to go forward without God. Otherwise, I'll just continue falling. And once we have had that nourishment, we start to realize this when we reflect back on where we were uh, before returning back to the place of that original encounter. And so, in this sense, we are like the prodigal son. So what happens in the prodigal son story? So the prodigal son takes the father's and his share of the inheritance, goes to a distant land. He loses all his inheritance, but it's when he loses all that inheritance, he starts to realize that he needs to return to the father, because the father is his place of security, is his place of certainty. It is his comfort zone. It is the place where he can find comfort and refuge in being his father. And so for us, we can relate to that because we too, at a point in our life, get lost. And then we start to realize that we need to return back to the Father for that protection, for that comfort, for that support. And so this happens when we first realize that we are weak in the first place. And sometimes, unfortunately, to acknowledge our weakness requires us to go through a moment of setbacks, or requires us to go through challenges and obstacles we don't particularly want to face. But the Lord permits these things because He wants to remind you that without Him, there's not much that we can do. And in fact, we have to depend on Him. So the second step is acknowledging your weakness and acknowledging the fact that you need God. So the third step is this now, is to start building your prayer life again. And building your prayer life again means to re-strengthen your foundation, is to firm your foundation again. Because, once you've had that prayer life, you have already, once you started to live a life of prayer, you have already made that foundation, and that foundation will never go. But what can happen over time is that foundation starts to weaken. And so once we renourish ourselves, once we realize that we need God in our lives going forward, we then start to build on our prayer life again and rebuild that foundation again. And then ultimately, the stronger your prayer life and your connection with God is, the more strength that you can then draw from your relationship with God to help you in your day-to-day life. And so you won't fall as easy as it did before because the foundation of your prayer life is so strong. That connection that you have with God is so strong that you won't be as easily shaken. And now this doesn't mean that you won't have any more problems. You'll still have challenges and obstacles to come in your life. And you'll still have maybe at times, a very challenging time in your faith. But because your foundation is so strong, you won't collapse. Because God in your prayer life has become that very powerful cornerstone. So now, after acknowledging your weakness, now after nourishing yourself with that zeal of God, you're now starting to build on that prayer life again. And from your prayer life, you then continue to walk in the life that is pleasing to God. You continue to walk in the will of God, and you continue to walk with the knowledge that God has given you, with the wisdom that God has given you, and most importantly, as well, with the strength that God has given you. And so, my dear friends, this process can take time. It's not something that happens overnight. But it's like what they say, you have to trust the process and let this process make you return back to that path that God has given you, that God has for you. And may this process help you to then live that life pleasing to God. But in this process as well, it's so important that we are patient. So thank you so much, guys, for listening. I hope that you can relate to this, and I hope that this can help you in your spiritual journey, in your journey with Christ. So thank you so much, guys, for listening, and have a great week ahead. And it is the start of Advent now, so I hope you guys have a brilliant Advent season. Take care. God bless.